What if the next penny you pick up looks completely ordinary, but turns out to be hiding a story that connects you to one of the most fascinating moments in modern coin collecting? A single coin, minted in 1969, that has quietly sparked curiosity, confusion, and even excitement among collectors for decades. Today, we're diving into the 1969 D Lincoln penny, a coin that most people overlook, but one that carries more history and intrigue than you might expect. The 1969 D Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By 1969, the coin had already been in circulation for 60 years, becoming one of the most recognized pieces of currency in the United States. The D mint mark on this coin tells us it was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the primary facilities responsible for producing coins for everyday USD.at first glance. There's nothing flashy about the 1969 D penny. It looks like countless other pennies you've seen. But that's exactly what makes it interesting. Coins like this remind us that even everyday objects can carry hidden value and untold stories, especially when you take a closer look. To understand this coin, we need to go back to the late 1960s. America was going through a time of major change. The economy was shifting, and the demand for coins in circulation was increasing rapidly. Vending machines, public transportation, and everyday commerce all relied heavily on small change. The U.S. Mint had to produce billions of pennies each year just to keep up. In 1969, the Denver Mint struck a massive number of Lincoln pennies. These coins were made primarily of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving them that familiar reddish-brown color. The design featured Abraham Lincoln on the front, a portrait that had become iconic over the decades. On the back, you'd find the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959 to mark Lincoln's 150th birthday. Even though millions of these coins were produced, not all of them are equal. Subtle differences in condition, color, and strike quality can make a big difference in value. And this is where the story starts to get interesting. One of the key features collectors look for in a 1969 D penny is its condition. Coins that have never been circulated, often called mint state, are much more valuable than those that have been worn down over time. A bright, well-preserved coin with sharp details can stand out immediately to an experienced collector. But beyond condition, there's another layer of intrigue. Around this time, the U.S. Mint was dealing with growing concerns about counterfeit coins and minting errors. In fact, 1969 became a notable year because of a famous error variety, the 1969 double die penny. While that rare version was produced in Philadelphia and does not carry a mint mark, its existence has made collectors pay much closer attention to all 1969 pennies, including those from Denver. This increased attention means that even a standard 1969 D penny gets more scrutiny than you might expect. People carefully examine the lettering, the date, and the overall appearance, hoping to spot something unusual. So what makes the 1969 D penny valuable today? The answer lies in a combination of rarity, condition, and collector demand. While the coin itself is not considered extremely rare in circulated condition, high-grade examples can be surprisingly valuable. A well-preserved 1969 D penny with a rich red color and minimal imperfections can sell for significantly more than its face value. In some cases, collectors have paid dozens, even hundreds of dollars for top-quality examples. Coins graded at the highest levels with nearly perfect surfaces and strong details are especially sought after. These are not coins you find in everyday pocket change. They've been carefully preserved, sometimes for decades. Real auction records show that exceptional examples of the 1969 D penny can command impressive prices. While most are worth only a few cents, a coin in pristine condition, graded at the highest levels, can reach into the hundreds of dollars. This wide range of value is what makes coin collecting so exciting. The difference between an ordinary coin and a valuable one often comes down to small details that many people overlook. If you're wondering how to identify a genuine 1969 D penny, there are a few simple things to look for. First, check the date and the mint mark. The 1969 should be clearly visible, and the small d should appear just below the date. The lettering should look clean and consistent, not blurry or uneven. Next, examine the coin's surface. A real coin will have a natural look, with fine details in Lincoln's hair and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. Be cautious of coins that look overly shiny or have strange textures, as these could be signs of cleaning or even counterfeiting. Weight can also be a clue. A standard 1969D penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. While you don't need specialized equipment, even a simple scale can help confirm whether a coin is within the expected range. Another important tip is to be careful with coins that claim to be rare error varieties. As mentioned earlier, the famous double die error from 1969 does not have a mint mark. If you see a 1969D penny being advertised as a double die, it's likely not genuine. This is a common mistake that beginners make, and it's something experienced collectors always watch out for. Beyond its technical details, the 1969D penny has some fun and surprising aspects. For example, it was produced during a time when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with new technologies and processes to improve coin production. This period helped shape the modern minting techniques used today. Another interesting detail is how these coins age over time. Freshly minted pennies have a bright red color, but as they circulate, they gradually turn brown due to oxidation. Some collectors specifically seek out red or red-brown coins because they indicate less exposure to air and handling. There's also a certain nostalgia attached to coins from this era. For many people, the late 1960s represent a time of cultural change and historical significance. Holding a 1969 penny can feel like holding a small piece of that history in your hand. Collectors love the 1969D penny not because it's the rarest coin out there, but because it represents the essence of coin collecting. It's accessible, familiar, and full of subtle variations that reward careful observation. It teaches collectors to pay attention to detail, to appreciate condition, and to understand the factors that influence value. For beginners, it's a perfect entry point into the hobby. You don't need a "what if" the penny sitting in your pocket right now. The one you barely notice could quietly be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it looks flashy or rare at first glance, but because of tiny details most people never think to check. Today, we're uncovering the real story behind the 1973D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that millions have handled, but very few truly understand. The 1973D Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln Cent series, one of the most recognizable coins in American history. First introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln, this coin marked a turning point in U.S. currency. It was the first time a real historical figure appeared on a circulating American coin. By 1973, the Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for over 6 decades, becoming a familiar part of everyday life across the United States. The D Mint mark on this coin tells us something important. It means the coin was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the primary facilities responsible for producing U.S. coins. In 1973, the Denver Mint struck over 3 billion pennies. That's right, billions. So at first glance, this might not seem like a rare coin at all. In fact, most people assume it's just another common penny with no real value. But here's where things get interesting. Even though the total mintage was extremely high, not all 1973D pennies are equal. Some stand out because of their condition, others because of subtle errors or unique characteristics that most people overlook. And in the world of coin collecting, those small differences can mean the difference between 1 cent and hundreds, sometimes even thousands of dollars. To really understand this coin, let's take a closer look at its design and composition. The 1973D Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper. At that time, pennies were composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This gives the coin its rich, reddish-brown appearance when it's in new condition. Over time, as the coin circulates and reacts with the environment, it can turn brown or develop darker tones. Collectors actually pay close attention to this color, classifying pennies as red, red-brown, or brown. Depending on how much original luster remains on the front or obverse side, you'll see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Lincoln faces to the right, with the word Liberty on the left side and the year 1973 on the right. Just below the year is the small but important D Mint mark, indicating it was struck in Denver. Above Lincoln's head is the phrase "In God We Trust," a motto that has appeared on U.S. coins for many years. On the reverse side, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, which was introduced in 1959 to replace the earlier wheat design. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny representation of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. It's a detail so small that many people never notice it, even after handling countless pennies. Now, here's where collectors start to get excited. While most 1973D pennies are common, coins in pristine, uncirculated condition can be surprisingly valuable. These are coins that were never used in everyday transactions. They still have their original shine, sharp details, and no signs of wear. In the coin world, this is referred to as mint state. Coins are graded on a scale, typically from 1 to 70. The higher the number, the better the condition. A 1973D penny in average circulated condition might still only be worth 1 cent. But in high mint state grades, especially MS65 or higher, the value begins to climb. In fact, well-preserved examples have sold for anywhere from a few dollars to over $100, depending on their quality. And in rare cases, coins with exceptional luster and near-perfect surfaces have reached even higher prices at auction. But condition is only part of the story. Another factor that can increase the value of a 1973D penny is the presence of minting errors. These errors happen during the production process and can create unique variations that collectors actively search for. One of the most well-known types of errors is the double die. This occurs when the coin's design is accidentally stamped more than once in slightly different positions, creating a doubled appearance on certain letters or numbers. While not extremely common for this specific year, any verified double die error can significantly increase the coin's value. There are also off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned and the coin appears partially blank on one side. Another type is a clipped planchet, where a portion of the coin is missing due to a mistake during the metal cutting process. Even small details like die cracks, where fine lines appear on the surface due to worn equipment, can add interest and value for collectors who specialize in error coins. So how can you tell if your 1973D penny is worth more than face value? First, look at the condition. Does it still have a bright copper red shine? Are the details sharp, especially in Lincoln's hair and the steps of the memorial? If the coin looks almost brand new, it could be worth setting aside. Next, examine the coin closely for any unusual features. Look at the lettering, the numbers, and the overall alignment. If something looks slightly off or different from a typical penny, it might be worth getting it checked by a professional. Weight can also be a clue. A standard 1973 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's significantly different, it could indicate an error or even a counterfeit. Speaking of counterfeits, while fake 1973D pennies are not extremely common, they do exist, especially when it comes to altered coins. Some people try to modify other pennies to make them appear more valuable. For example, adding a fake mint mark or altering the date. That's why it's important to compare your coin with verified examples and, if needed, consult a reputable coin dealer or grading service. Now let's talk about something that surprises many people. Even though billions of these coins were made, finding one in truly perfect condition today is incredibly difficult. Why? Because most of them entered circulation immediately and were used heavily over the years. They passed through countless hands, vending machines, cash registers, and pockets. Each interaction added tiny scratches, wear, and damage. As a result, high-grade examples have become much scarcer than the original mintage would suggest. This is one of the key reasons why collectors are willing to pay a premium for well-preserved coins from this era. There are also some interesting historical details tied to the early 1970s that add context to this coin. During this time, the United States was facing rising inflation and changes in metal prices. Just a few years earlier, in 1965, the composition of dimes and quarters had been changed from silver to a copper-nickel blend. While the penny remained mostly copper in 1973, discussions were already beginning about future changes due to the increasing cost of copper. This eventually led to the introduction of zinc-based pennies in 1982. So in a way, the 1973D penny represents one of the final chapters of the classic copper era. Collectors today often appreciate these coins not just for their potential value, but for what they represent. They are a snapshot of a specific moment in American history, a time when everyday currency still carried a substantial amount of copper and craftsmanship. Another fun detail is how many people unknowingly have these coins stored away. Old jars, piggy banks, drawers, and inherited collections often contain pennies from the 1970s. Most people never think to check them closely, assuming they are all the same. But occasionally, someone discovers a high-grade coin or a rare error that turns an ordinary find into something special. And that's part of what makes coin collecting so exciting. It's not just about rare coins locked away in museums or private collections. It's about the possibility that something valuable could already be in your possession, waiting to be noticed. The 1973 Lincoln penny may not be the rarest coin in the world, but it holds a unique place in the hobby. It reminds collectors that value is not always obvious. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight, in the smallest. Imagine reaching into your pocket and pulling out a penny, a coin so ordinary you almost ignore it. Now imagine that same penny quietly holding a story that stretches across American history, a story that collectors still chase today. What if one small detail on that coin could make the difference between 1 cent and something far more valuable? Today, we're talking about the 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, it looks like any other coin you've seen 1,000 times. It features the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But as simple as it seems, this coin has layers of history, subtle details, and surprising collector interest that make it worth a closer look. The 1978 penny was part of a long-running series that began back in 1909, when the United States first honored President Abraham Lincoln on a circulating coin. By 1978, the design had already been in use for decades. America was going through a period of economic change, inflation was rising, and pennies were being produced in massive numbers to keep up with demand. Billions of these coins were struck that year, making them one of the most common coins in circulation. So what does no mint mark actually mean? In 1978, pennies were produced at multiple facilities, including Philadelphia and Denver. Coins struck in Denver carry a small D mint mark under the date. But coins made in Philadelphia during that time did not carry any mint mark at all. So when you see a 1978 penny without a letter under the date, it means it was minted in Philadelphia. That might sound ordinary, and in many ways it is. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 5.5 billion pennies in 1978 alone. That's billions with a B. So rarity doesn't come from low production numbers here. Instead, the story becomes interesting when you look at condition, quality, and the possibility of subtle errors. Let's take a closer look at the coin itself. The front, known as the obverse, features a right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln. Above his head, you'll see the word Liberty. The year 1978 is stamped to the right, and the phrase "In God We Trust" arches across the top. It's a clean, classic design that has become one of the most recognizable in American coinage. Flip the coin over, and you'll find the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny depiction of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. Above it reads United States of America, and below it is the denomination 1 cent. It's a design that stayed in use until 2008, making it familiar to generations of Americans. Now let's talk about what the coin is made of. The 1978 penny is composed mostly of copper, about 95% copper and 5% zinc. This gives it that rich, reddish-brown color when it's new. Over time, exposure to air and handling causes the coin to darken, sometimes turning brown or even developing a slightly uneven tone. But here's where things start to get interesting. While most 1978 no-mint mark pennies are worth only a few cents, certain examples can be worth much more. The key factor is condition. Coins that were never circulated, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, can still have their original shine. Collectors call this mint state. A 1978 penny in average circulated condition might only be worth its face value. But a well-preserved, uncirculated example can sell for several dollars. And if the coin has exceptional quality, sharp details, and a strong original luster, the value can climb even higher. Now let's talk about errors, because this is where the real excitement begins. Coin errors happen during the minting process, and they can turn an ordinary coin into something truly unique. In 1978 pennies, collectors sometimes look for double die errors, where the design appears slightly doubled, especially in the lettering. There are also off-center strikes, where the design isn't perfectly aligned on the coin, and even rare cases of planchet errors, where the metal blank itself had an issue before being struck. While these errors are not extremely common, they do exist. And when collectors find a genuine error coin in good condition, the value can jump significantly. Some error coins from this era have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on the severity and clarity of the mistake. There have been real auction examples that highlight this potential. High-grade 1978 no-mint mark pennies, especially those graded by professional services, have reached impressive prices compared to their humble origins. A coin graded at the top levels of preservation, with a bright red color and flawless surfaces, can sell for over $100. That might not sound like millions, but what if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now, the one you barely notice, could be worth far more than a single cent? What if a coin made in 1987, a year many people don't even think twice about, holds hidden details that collectors are still searching for today? Let's take a closer look at the 1987 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin that might seem ordinary at first glance, but carries a story that goes deeper than most people realize. The 1987 D Lincoln penny is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, one of the most recognizable coins in American history. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, this coin became the first U.S. currency to feature a real person. By 1987, the design had already been in circulation for nearly 8 decades, making it a familiar sight in everyday life. The D Mint mark on this coin tells us it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the major facilities responsible for producing circulating coins in the United States. In 1987, millions upon millions of pennies were struck in Denver, and at the time, there was nothing particularly special about them. They were made to do one simple job: circulate. But here's where things start to get interesting. The late 1980s was a time when the composition of the penny had already changed. Prior to 1982, pennies were made mostly of copper. However, due to rising copper prices, the U.S. Mint switched to a new composition. By 1987, the penny was made primarily of zinc, with only a thin outer coating of copper. This change made the coin lighter and cheaper to produce, but it also introduced new possibilities for errors and variations. The design of the 1987 D penny remained classic and consistent. On the front, you'll see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, facing right. Above his head is the word Liberty, while the year 1987 appears to the right. Just below the year, you'll find the small but important D Mint mark on the reverse side. The coin features the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was introduced in 1959. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny image of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. It's one of the few coins in the world where the same person appears on both sides at first glance. Everything about this coin seems standard. But collectors know that sometimes the most valuable coins are the ones that hide small, almost invisible differences. So why would a 1987 D penny ever be worth more than 1 cent? The answer lies in condition, rarity within condition, and the possibility of errors. Even though millions were produced, most of these coins entered circulation and experienced wear over time. They were used, handled, scratched, and often forgotten. That means finding a 1987 D penny in pristine, uncirculated condition today is much harder than you might think. Collectors place a high value on coins that look almost brand new, with sharp details, strong luster, and no visible damage. These are often graded by professional services using a scale that goes up to Mint State 70, or MS-70, which represents a perfect coin. For the 1987 D penny, coins in lower circulated grades might only be worth face value. But in higher mint state grades, especially MS-65 and above, the value begins to climb. Some high-grade examples have sold for several dollars, while exceptionally well-preserved coins, particularly those graded MS-67 or higher, can reach much higher prices at auction. But condition is only part of the story. Another factor that excites collectors is the possibility of mint errors. Errors occur during the production process, and they can turn an ordinary coin into something unique. For the 1987 D penny, some known errors include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned on the coin, and double die errors, where parts of the design appear duplicated due to a misalignment during the die creation process. There are also cases of die cracks, where small lines appear on the coin due to stress on the die, and even clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is missing due to a mistake in the blank cutting process. While not every 1987 D penny has these errors, the ones that do can be worth significantly more than standard coins. Depending on the type and severity of the error, values can range from a few dollars to hundreds of dollars in rare cases. Let's talk about real-world value examples. A typical circulated 1987 D penny might still be worth just 1 cent. but an uncirculated coin in MS-65 condition could sell for a few dollars. Move up to MS-67, and you might see prices in the range of $50 to $150 depending on demand and eye appeal. Now, if you add a rare error into the mix, things can change dramatically. A well-defined double die or a dramatic off-center strike could push the value much higher, sometimes reaching several $100s, especially if the coin is in excellent condition. This is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. It's not just about age, it's about detail. So how can you tell if you have a valuable 1987 D penny? Start by checking the date and mint mark. Make sure the year reads 1987 and that there is a small D under the date. Next, look closely at the condition. Does the coin still have its original shine? Are the details sharp, especially in Lincoln's hair and the steps of the memorial? Then examine the coin for unusual features. Look for doubling in the letters or numbers. Check if the design appears off-center. Inspect the edges for anything that looks incomplete or irregular. It's also important to weigh the coin if you can. A standard 1987 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams due to its zinc composition. If the weight is significantly different, it could indicate an unusual planchet or even a rare error. Of course, with valuable coins, there's always the question of authenticity. While pennies are not as commonly counterfeited as higher value coins, it's still possible to encounter altered or misleading pieces. Some people may try to modify coins to make them appear as errors, or even add fake mint marks. That's why it's important to rely on trusted sources, and if you believe you have something special, consider having the coin professionally graded and authenticated. There's also a surprising detail about the 1987 D penny that many people overlook. Because it's made of zinc with a copper coating, these coins are more vulnerable to damage than older copper pennies. Over time, the zinc core can corrode if the outer layer is compromised, leading to bubbling or peeling surfaces. This means that truly high-quality examples are becoming harder to find as the years go by. In a way, time is slowly reducing the number of well-preserved 1987 pennies, which adds to their appeal among collectors. Another fun fact is that billions of pennies are produced, yet only a tiny fraction are ever set aside in perfect condition. Most people simply spend them without a second thought. That means the coins collectors are searching for today were often saved by chance, not intention. Imagine someone in 1987 receiving a handful of change and deciding to keep a few shiny new pennies, not knowing that decades later, those same coins could be worth far more than their face value. This element of chance is part of what makes coin collecting so exciting. Collectors today are drawn to the 1987 D penny not because it's the rarest coin ever made, but because it represents the idea that value can be hidden in plain sight. It's a reminder that even modern coins can become collectible under the right circumstances. It's also an accessible entry point for new collectors. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars to start searching. You can check your pocket change, old jars, or coin rolls from the bank. The thrill comes from the hunt, from the possibility that you might find something unexpected. And that brings us back to the question we started with. What if that penny in your pocket is more than just a penny? The 1987 D Lincoln penny may not seem extraordinary at first, but when you understand its history, its composition, and the subtle details that make certain examples stand out, it becomes something much more interesting. It becomes a small piece of history, a snapshot of American coin. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out a simple penny, and unknowingly holding something that could be worth far more than 1 cent. It sounds unlikely, almost impossible. But for some coins, especially certain Lincoln pennies, that possibility is very real. And today, we're taking a closer look at one of those coins that often gets overlooked. The 1994 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, the 1994 Lincoln penny doesn't look special. It's small, copper-colored, and carries a familiar design that millions of Americans have seen their entire lives. On the front, you see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, along with the words, "In God we trust, liberty," and the year 1994. On the back, depending on the version, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used for decades before being replaced in later years. But here's where it gets interesting. Some of these 1994 pennies were struck without a mint mark. And for many people, that tiny missing detail raises a big question. Could this coin be rare or even valuable? To understand that, we need to go back in time. The Lincoln penny series began in 1909, created to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure, and it quickly became one of the most recognized coins in American history. Over the years, pennies were produced in different U.S. mint locations, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each mint typically placed a small letter on the coin, known as a mint mark, to show where it was made. In 1994, the United States Mint was producing billions of pennies to meet everyday demand. Most of these coins came from the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Coins from Denver carry a D mint mark, but coins from Philadelphia at that time often had no mint mark at all. So when you see a 1994 penny with no mint mark, it usually means it was made in Philadelphia. And that might sound common because it is. The Philadelphia Mint produced a massive number of pennies in 1994, making them easy to find even today. But that doesn't mean all 1994 no mint mark pennies are the same. Let's talk about what makes this coin unique. The 1994 Lincoln penny is made mostly of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition had been used since 1982, when the mint changed from mostly copper pennies to reduce costs. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge. The design, created by Victor David Brenner, features Lincoln's portrait on the front, while the reverse side shows the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. If you look closely at the back, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, a small detail that many people miss. But what really captures collectors' attention are the possible errors and variations. Not every 1994 no mint mark penny is valuable, but certain examples stand out because of minting errors. These errors can happen during the production process, and they turn an ordinary coin into something collectors actively search for. One of the most talked about types is the double die error. This happens when the coin's design is stamped more than once, slightly misaligned, creating a noticeable doubling effect on the letters or numbers. If you see clear doubling on words like liberty or in God we trust, you might be looking at something special. Another type of error is an off-center strike. This occurs when the coin blank isn't perfectly aligned during stamping, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. These coins look unusual and can be worth significantly more than face value. There are also coins with die cracks, where small lines appear on the surface due to worn or damaged dies. While minor cracks are common and not always valuable, more dramatic examples can attract collector interest. Then there are coins with missing or weak details, sometimes caused by worn dies or improper striking pressure. These can vary in value depending on how noticeable the flaw is. Now, let's talk about value. Most 1994 no mint mark pennies you find in circulation are only worth 1 cent. Even in uncirculated condition, many sell for just a few cents to a few dollars. But once you add condition and possible errors into the mix, the story changes. A well-preserved 1994 penny with no mint mark, graded in high mint state condition, can sell for anywhere from $10 to $50, sometimes more depending on its quality. Coins with a strong, bright luster and no visible wear are always more desirable. But error coins are where things get exciting. For example, a 1994 penny with a clear double die error can sell for $50 to over $200, depending on how strong and visible the doubling is. Off-center strike coins can range from $20 to several $100s, especially if the date is still visible and the error is dramatic. In rare cases, collectors have paid even more for unique or eye-catching errors. These are not everyday finds, but they do exist, and they keep people searching through rolls of pennies, hoping to discover something valuable hiding in plain sight. So how can you tell if your 1994 no mint mark penny is worth more than 1 cent? Start by examining the coin carefully under good lighting. Look at the front and back, paying close attention to the letters, numbers, and edges. A magnifying glass or coin loop can help you spot small details that are easy to miss with the naked eye. Check for doubling in the text. Look for unusual shapes, lines, or misaligned features. Notice if the design is off-center or if any part of the coin looks incomplete. Next, consider the condition. Coins that look clean, shiny, and free from scratches or wear are generally more valuable. Even without errors, a high-quality coin can still have collector appeal. Also, be cautious of coins that look altered. Some people try to modify coins to make them appear rare. For example, they might remove a mint mark or damage the surface to mimic an error. Authentic error coins have natural, consistent characteristics, not rough or tampered edges. If you think you've found something unusual, it may be worth getting the coin evaluated by a professional grading service. These experts can confirm whether your coin is genuine and assign it a grade, which helps determine its market value. Now here's something surprising. Even though billions of 1994 pennies were made, many people still overlook them completely. They pass through hands every day, dropped into jars, lost in couch cushions, or spent without a second thought. And yet, hidden among those ordinary coins, there's always the possibility of finding one with a story, or a hidden flaw that turns it into something special. Another interesting fact is that coin collecting isn't just about money. For many collectors, it's about history, discovery, and the thrill of the hunt. Finding a rare variation or an unusual error can be just as exciting as the value itself. The 1994 no-mint mark penny represents that idea perfectly. It's a reminder that even the most common objects can have hidden layers, waiting to be explored by someone curious enough to look closer. Collectors today love coins like this because they are accessible. You don't need a large budget to start searching. You can begin with the change in your pocket or a roll of pennies from the bank. And every coin you examine adds to your knowledge and experience. There's also something deeply satisfying about finding value in something others ignore. It turns an everyday habit into a treasure hunt, where patience and attention to detail can pay off as time goes on. Coins like the 1994 Lincoln penny may become harder to find in top condition. Many have already been worn down through circulation, and fewer remain in pristine shape. That gradual change can increase interest among collectors, especially for high-grade examples and unique error coins. So the next time you come across a 1994 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a moment to look at it closely. Notice the details. Ask yourself if there's something unusual about it. Because sometimes the smallest details make the biggest difference. And who knows, the next penny you find might not just be spare change. It might be a hidden piece of history, quietly waiting to be discovered. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now, the one you almost ignored, could be worth far more than just 1 cent? Not thousands in every case, but enough to make you stop, look twice, and wonder what you've been overlooking all along. Today, we're diving into a coin that millions of people have seen, but very few have truly examined. The 2000 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, the 2000 Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. It's small, copper-colored, and carries the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front. You've probably handled dozens of them without a second thought. But hidden within these everyday coins are details, variations, and even rare errors that can turn a simple penny into something collectors actively search for. To understand why this coin matters, we need to go back to the year 2000. This was a time when the United States was stepping into a new millennium. Technology was rapidly changing, the internet was growing, and people were fascinated with the idea of the future. Yet despite all that change, one thing remained consistent: the design of the Lincoln penny. The Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for over 90 years by 2000, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical figure instead of symbolic imagery. That alone made it special. By the time the year 2000 arrived, the penny had become more than just currency. It was a piece of American tradition. Now, when we talk about a no-mint mark 2000 penny, we're referring to coins that were produced in Philadelphia. Unlike some earlier decades, by the year 2000, Philadelphia coins typically did include a P mint mark. However, pennies were an exception. The Philadelphia Mint continued to produce Lincoln cents without a mint mark, which can be confusing for many people. So when you see a 2000 penny without any letter under the date, it doesn't automatically mean it's rare. It simply means it was struck in Philadelphia. But here's where things get interesting. Not all of these pennies are the same. The 2000 Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating. This composition started in 1982 when the U.S. Mint changed from solid copper to reduce costs. So even though the coin looks coppery, it's actually mostly zinc inside. That detail alone surprises many people who assume older-looking coins are made entirely of copper. On the front, or obverse, you'll see Lincoln's profile, along with the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year 2000. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been used since 1959. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. It's one of the smallest detailed portraits ever placed on a circulating coin. But what really draws collectors to the 2000 no-mint mark penny isn't just its design. It's the possibility of errors and high-grade condition coins. Errors are where ordinary coins become extraordinary. In 2000 pennies, collectors have found a variety of minting mistakes. Some coins show doubling in the lettering, where the text appears slightly duplicated. Others have off-center strikes, where the design isn't properly aligned. There are even cases of broad strikes, where the coin appears stretched or misshapen due to a missing collar during minting. These errors don't happen often, and when they do, they usually slip into circulation unnoticed. That's why finding one today can feel like discovering hidden treasure. Another factor that adds value is condition. Most 2000 pennies have been heavily circulated. They've passed through countless hands, machines, and years of wear. But if you find one in near-perfect condition, what collectors call mint state, its value can increase dramatically. For example, a typical circulated 2000 no-mint mark penny is only worth its face value 1 cent. But in uncirculated condition, it might sell for a few dollars. And in exceptionally high grades, especially those graded MS-67 or higher, these coins have been known to sell for over $100, sometimes even more depending on the quality and eye appeal. Now, if you combine a high-grade coin with a rare error, the value can rise even further. Some error coins from the year 2000 have sold for several $100s at auction. While these cases are not common, they show just how much potential can exist in something as simple as a penny. So how can you tell if you have one of these valuable coins? First, check the date. Make sure it clearly reads 2000. Next, look under the date. If there is no mint mark, you're looking at a Philadelphia coin. That's your starting point. Then, examine the coin closely. Look for any unusual features. Does the lettering look doubled? Is the design slightly off-center? Are there any strange lines, bumps, or distortions? These could be signs of an error. Condition is just as important. A shiny, well-preserved coin with sharp details is far more desirable than one that's worn or damaged. Avoid cleaning the coin, as that can actually reduce its value. If you believe you've found something special, collectors often recommend having the coin evaluated by a professional grading service. This can confirm its authenticity and assign it a grade, which helps determine its market value. Here's something many people don't realize: billions of pennies were produced in the year 2000. That means most of them are extremely common. But within those billions, a tiny fraction stands out. And that's what keeps collectors searching. There's also a psychological element to collecting coins like this. It's the idea that something small and overlooked can carry hidden worth. It's the thrill of discovery, the possibility that value is hiding in plain sight. Another fun detail is that the Lincoln Memorial design on the back of the 2000 penny would soon be replaced. In 2009, to celebrate Lincoln's 200th birthday, the U.S. Mint introduced a new series of reverse designs. That means the 2000 penny represents one of the final years of the classic memorial style, making it part of the closing chapter of a long-running design. Collectors appreciate coins that mark the end of an era. Even if they're not rare today, their historical significance grows over time. And here's a surprising fact: many valuable coins are found not in collections, but in everyday circulation. People discover them in spare change, old jars, or forgotten drawers. That means the next valuable penny isn't locked away somewhere. It could be sitting right in front of you. The 2000 no-mint mark Lincoln penny may not be the rarest coin in the world, but it represents something important. It shows how value isn't always obvious. It teaches patience, attention to detail, and curiosity. Collectors love this coin not just for what it is, but for what it represents: a gateway into the world of coin collecting. It's accessible, familiar, and full of potential surprises. And maybe that's the real story here. Not just the coin itself, But the idea that something so small can open the door to a much bigger world, so the next time you come across a penny from the year 2000, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Turn it over in your hand. Examine the details. Because hidden among the ordinary, there's always a chance you're holding something extraordinary. And once you start looking, you may never see your spare change the same way again. What if the next penny you find in your pocket isn't just loose change, but a small piece of history that could be worth far more than 1 cent? Most people overlook pennies every single day, but hidden among billions of them are coins with stories, secrets, and sometimes surprising value. And today, we're uncovering one of those coins, the 2001 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, the 2001 penny looks completely ordinary. It's small, copper-colored, and carries the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front. But when you take a closer look, especially at the missing mint mark, you start to realize there's more to this coin than meets the eye. Let's start with the basics. The 2001 Lincoln penny is part of a long-running series that began back in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln. By the time 2001 came around, this design had already been in circulation for over 90 years. These coins were produced in multiple locations across the United States, mainly in Philadelphia and Denver. Coins made in Denver carry a small D mint mark, while coins made in Philadelphia, like the one we're focusing on today, have no mint mark at all. So when you see a 2001 penny without a mint mark, it means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. That's completely normal. But here's where things get interesting. Even though millions of these coins were made, not all of them are equal. Some stand out because of their condition, their striking quality, or even subtle errors that most people would never notice. The 2001 penny was produced during a time when the composition of U.S. coins had already changed. Earlier Lincoln pennies, especially those before 1982, were made mostly of copper. But by 2001, pennies were made from a zinc core with a thin copper coating. This makes them lighter and cheaper to produce, but also more prone to wear and damage over time. Now let's talk about the design. On the front, you'll see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, a design created by Victor David Brenner. Above his head is the word Liberty, and to the right is the year 2001. Since this coin has no mint mark, the space below the year is empty. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 to 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, one of the smallest detailed elements ever included on a circulating coin. But what makes a 2001 no mint mark penny special? Why would collectors pay attention to something so common? The answer lies in rarity within condition and errors. While billions of these coins were produced, very few have survived in perfect, uncirculated condition. Coins that were never used, never scratched, and never worn down can be surprisingly valuable. These are often graded by professional services, and the highest grade examples can sell for far more than face value. There are also error coins to consider. Sometimes, during the minting process, things don't go exactly as planned. You might find a 2001 penny with off-center strikes, double dies, or unusual surface marks caused by flaws in the minting equipment. These errors are rare, and collectors are always on the lookout for them. For example, a well-preserved 2001 penny in mint state condition can sell for a few dollars, but if it has a strong strike and a high grade, like MS-67 or higher, it can reach prices of $50, $100, or even more at auction. Error coins can go even higher depending on how unique and visible the mistake is. There have been cases where collectors discovered what looked like an ordinary 2001 penny, only to realize it had a doubling effect on the lettering or a misaligned strike. These small details can turn a 1-cent coin into a collectible piece worth dozens or even hundreds of dollars. So how can you tell if you have a valuable one? Start by checking the condition. Look at the surface of the coin. Is it shiny and smooth, or is it scratched and dull? Coins with fewer marks and stronger details are always more desirable. Next, examine the design closely. Pay attention to the letters and numbers. Do they look sharp and clear, or do you see any doubling or distortion? You should also check the edges and alignment. A coin that's slightly off-center or has unusual spacing between elements might be an error coin. Using a magnifying glass can help you spot these details more easily. Another important step is authenticity. While it's rare for someone to fake a 2001 penny, altered coins do exist. Some people try to modify coins to make them look like error pieces. That's why serious collectors often rely on professional grading services. These organizations examine the coin, confirm its authenticity, and assign it a grade based on its condition. Now here's something many people don't realize. Even though the 2001 no-mint mark penny isn't rare in terms of mintage, it represents a specific moment in U.S. coin history. It's part of the final years of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design, which would eventually be replaced in 2009 during the Lincoln Bicentennial. That means this coin is part of a transition period. It connects the classic design that lasted for decades with the modern changes that followed. For collectors, that historical connection adds another layer of interest. There are also some fun facts that make this coin even more intriguing. For instance, the Lincoln Memorial on the back is one of the few coin designs that includes the same person on both sides. If you look closely enough, you can see Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, meaning he appears twice on the same coin. Another interesting detail is how these coins age. Because of their zinc core, 2001 pennies can develop spots, discoloration, or even bubbling under the surface if the copper plating is damaged. This makes high-quality examples even harder to find over time. Collectors today love the 2001 no-mint mark penny not because it's extremely rare, but because it's accessible. It's a coin that anyone can find, examine, and potentially discover something valuable in. It turns everyday pocket change into a treasure hunt. And that's really the magic of coin collecting. It's not just about owning rare items. It's about the thrill of discovery, the connection to history, and the idea that something small and ordinary can hold unexpected value. So the next time you receive change, don't ignore those pennies. Take a closer look. Check the date. Look for that missing mint mark. Examine the details. Because hidden among those coins could be a 2001 Lincoln penny that tells a story, and maybe even holds a value far greater than 1 cent, and once you start looking, you might never see pocket change the same way again. What if the penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now is worth far more than 1 cent, and you've been overlooking it this whole time? Today, we're uncovering the surprising truth behind the 2005 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin that looks completely ordinary, yet holds details that many people miss. The 2005 Lincoln penny is part of one of the most recognized coin series in American history. It features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been in use since 1909. This particular penny, however, often raises questions because of something that seems missing at first glance. There's no mint mark visible. For many people, that immediately sparks curiosity. Does that mean it's rare? Does it make the coin more valuable? Or is it just a normal coin? To understand this, we need to go back to how U.S. coins are made. Every year, Pennies are produced in different locations, primarily Philadelphia and Denver. Coins from Denver carry a small D mint mark, while coins from Philadelphia, especially pennies, often have no mint mark at all. So when you see a 2005 penny without a mint mark, it means it was made in Philadelphia. That alone does not make it rare, but it's only the beginning of the story. The year 2005 itself was not a random year for the Lincoln penny. It was part of a transitional era in coin production. The U.S. Mint had already changed the composition of pennies decades earlier, moving away from solid copper to a zinc core with a thin copper coating. By 2005, pennies were made of about 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper. This change made coins cheaper to produce but also introduced new possibilities for errors and variations. Now let's talk about the design. On the front of the coin, you see Lincoln's profile, facing right, along with the words, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year 2005. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was used from 1959 until 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny image of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial. It's a small detail that many people never notice, yet it has fascinated collectors for decades. At first glance, millions of 2005 no-mint mark pennies were produced, which means most of them are common. But here's where things get interesting. Not all of these coins are exactly the same. Some have small variations, minting errors, or unusual features that can significantly increase their value. One of the most talked about features in coins like this is the possibility of errors. Errors happen during the minting process, and even though the U.S. Mint has strict quality control, mistakes still slip through. In the case of the 2005 penny, collectors have reported examples with off-center strikes, double dies, and weak or uneven details. A double die error, for example, occurs when the coin's design is stamped more than once in slightly different positions. This can create a subtle doubling effect in the letters or numbers. To the untrained eye, it might look like a blur, but to a collector, it can mean the difference between a 1-cent coin and something worth much more. Another interesting variation involves the coin's surface. Some 2005 pennies appear shinier or more reflective than others. These are often uncirculated coins or coins that were specially handled, sometimes even mistaken for proof coins. While true proof coins are made differently and usually sold directly to collectors, certain high-quality strikes from regular production can still attract attention. So why would a coin like this ever be valuable? The answer lies in condition, rarity of specific variations, and collector demand. Most 2005 no-mint mark pennies in everyday circulation are only worth 1 cent. But if you find one in perfect or near-perfect condition, known as mint state, its value can increase. Coins graded at the highest levels, such as MS 67 or above, are much harder to find and can sell for significantly higher prices. There have been cases where high-grade 2005 Lincoln pennies have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars. And if the coin has a verified error, the value can climb even higher depending on the rarity and visibility of that error. For example, a strong double die or a dramatic off-center strike can attract serious collectors who are willing to pay a premium. It's important to understand that not every unusual-looking coin is valuable. Sometimes wear and tear can create effects that look like errors but are actually just damage. That's why proper identification is so important. If you want to check your own 2005 penny, start with the basics. Look at the date and confirm there is no mint mark under the year. Then examine the coin under good lighting. A magnifying glass can help you spot details that are easy to miss. Look closely at the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust. If you notice clear doubling or unusual spacing, it might be worth investigating further. Next, check the coin's condition. Is it shiny and clean, or worn and scratched? Coins that have been in circulation for years usually show signs of wear, which lowers their value. On the other hand, a coin that looks almost brand new with sharp details and no visible damage could be much more desirable. Weight can also be a clue. A standard 2005 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If it's significantly heavier or lighter, that could indicate a minting error or, in rare cases, something unusual about the metal composition. Now let's talk about authenticity. Because valuable coins attract attention, there are always people trying to pass off altered or fake coins as rare finds. One common trick is to modify a coin to make it look like it has an error. For example, someone might try to remove a mint mark or alter the surface to create the appearance of doubling. To avoid this, it's best to rely on trusted grading services if you think you've found something special. Professional coin grading companies examine coins carefully and assign them a grade based on condition and authenticity. A certified coin is much easier to sell and often commands a higher price. Here's something many people don't realize. Even though the 2005 no mint mark penny is not rare in general, it plays an important role in the broader Lincoln penny series. It represents a period just before a major design change. In 2009, the reverse design of the penny was updated to celebrate Lincoln's 200th birthday, replacing the Lincoln Memorial with a series of new designs. That makes the 2005 penny part of the final stretch of the classic Memorial era. There are also some fun details hidden in plain sight. If you look very closely at the back of the coin, inside the Lincoln Memorial, you can actually see a tiny version of Lincoln sitting in his chair. This level of detail on such a small coin is remarkable and often surprises people who take the time to look closely. Another interesting fact is how many of these coins are still out there. Billions of pennies were produced in 2005, and many of them are still circulating today. That means the chance of finding one is high, but the chance of finding a truly exceptional one is much lower. It's like searching for a needle in a haystack, except the haystack is your spare change. Collectors love coins like the 2005 Lincoln penny not because every single one is valuable, but because of the possibilities. It's the idea that something so common could turn out to be special. It encourages people to pay attention, to look closer, and to appreciate the details that most people ignore. There's also a sense of connection to history. Even though 2005 might not feel like a distant past, every coin carries a story, passed through hands, across cities, and through everyday transactions. And somewhere along the way, a few of these coins became unique due to small imperfections or exceptional preservation. For many collectors, the thrill isn't just in the value. It's in the hunt. It's in the moment you spot something unusual and realize you might be holding more than just a penny. That feeling is what keeps people searching through jars of coins, checking their change, and learning more about the tiny details that make each coin different. So the next time you come across a 2005 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the details. Examine the condition. Because while most of these coins are ordinary, a few are anything but. And here's the question that keeps collectors coming back again and again. Imagine finding a simple penny in your pocket, and later discovering it could be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's ancient, not because it's gold, but because of something almost invisible. Today, we're uncovering the quiet mystery behind the 2006 mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin most people overlook, yet one that continues to surprise collectors in unexpected ways. At first glance, the 2006 Lincoln penny looks completely ordinary. It's a small, copper-colored coin featuring the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Millions of these coins were made, and many are still in circulation today. The small D mint mark just below the date tells us it was produced at the Denver Mint, one of the major facilities responsible for striking coins for everyday use in the United States. But here's where things get interesting. Even among coins that were produced in huge numbers, there are always a few that stand out. Small variations, tiny mistakes, or exceptional preservation can turn an everyday coin into something far more valuable. And that's exactly why collectors keep a close eye on coins like the 2006 penny. To understand this coin better, we need to go back to 2006. At that time, the Lincoln penny was still part of a long-running design series that began in 1959. This design featured the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side, replacing the earlier wheat design that many collectors love. The year 2006 didn't mark a major design change, but it was part of the final years of the Lincoln Memorial era, which ended in 2008. That alone gives this coin a small piece of historical significance, as it belongs to the closing chapter of a design that lasted nearly 50 years. The coin itself is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition was introduced in 1982 as a cost-saving measure. While older pennies were made mostly of copper, rising metal prices forced the U.S. Mint to switch to a cheaper core. So even though the coin looks like solid copper, it's actually much lighter and less valuable in terms of raw material. Now let's talk about the design. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln's portrait, a design that has been used since 1909. It was created by Victor David Brenner, and it remains one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Above Lincoln's head, you'll find the phrase, "In God we trust." To the left is the word liberty, and to the right is the date, 2006, along with the small D mint mark. On the reverse side, the Lincoln Memorial stands in detailed form. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny representation of Lincoln seated inside the building. Above the memorial are the words United States of America and E pluribus unum, while below it reads 1 cent. So what makes a coin like this valuable? After all, millions were produced. The answer lies in condition, rarity of errors, and collector demand. Most 2006 pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. But if you find one in near-perfect condition, something collectors call mint state, its value can increase significantly. Coins that have never been circulated, with sharp details and no visible wear, are much harder to find than you might think. Over time, coins get scratched, faded, or damaged. So a perfectly preserved example from 2006 is already something special. But the real excitement comes from errors. Minting errors are like accidents during the coin production process, and they can turn an ordinary penny into a collector's prize. Some 2006 pennies have been found with off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned. Others may have doubled features, known as doubling errors, where parts of the design appear slightly duplicated. There are also cases of die cracks, where small lines appear on the coin due to wear in the minting equipment. While these might seem like flaws, collectors often see them as unique fingerprints that make a coin one of a kind in rare situations. A 2006 penny with a noticeable error and excellent condition can sell for much more than its face value. Some examples have reached prices ranging from a few dollars to over $100, depending on the severity of the error and the overall quality of the coin. While it's not common to see one sell for thousands, the possibility of finding a valuable error keeps collectors searching through their change. Now, you might be wondering how to tell if you have a valuable one. The first step is to look closely at the coin under good lighting. Check the date and confirm the small D mint mark is present. Then examine the surface. Are there any unusual markings? Does the design look slightly doubled in certain areas? Is the coin perfectly centered? Condition is just as important. A shiny, clean coin with no scratches or wear is far more desirable than one that has been heavily used. Collectors often use grading systems to evaluate coins, ranging from poor condition to perfect mint state. Even a small difference in grade can mean a big difference in value. Another important tip is to be cautious of cleaning. Many people think cleaning a coin will make it more valuable, but the opposite is true. Cleaning can damage the surface and reduce its value significantly. Collectors prefer coins in their natural state, even if they have some toning or slight discoloration. For spotting fakes. The good news is that counterfeit 2006 pennies are not very common, mainly because the coin itself is not extremely high in value. However, altered coins do exist. Some people may try to modify a coin to make it look like an error. That's why it's important to compare your coin with verified examples or have it examined by a professional if you believe it's something special. Here's a surprising detail. Even though the 2006 penny is relatively modern, it's part of a larger collecting trend. Many collectors today are focusing on coins from the late 20th and early 21st centuries, searching for overlooked treasures. These coins are still easy to find, which makes the hunt exciting and accessible for beginners. Another fun fact is that pennies are often ignored in everyday transactions. People drop them, lose them, or leave them behind. But within those forgotten coins could be something rare. It's a reminder that value isn't always obvious at first glance. Collectors also love the 2006 penny because it represents a moment in time. It's a small piece of history you can hold in your hand. It connects you to the people who used it, the economy of that year, and the long tradition of American coinage. There's also a sense of possibility. Every coin has a story, and every collector hopes to find that one coin that stands out. It might be in a jar of spare change, a roll from the bank, or even on the ground. The idea that something so ordinary could become valuable is what keeps the passion alive. In today's market, interest in coin collecting continues to grow. Online marketplaces and auctions have made it easier than ever to buy and sell coins. This has also increased awareness of coins like the 2006 penny. While most are still worth only 1 cent, the right combination of condition and error can turn it into something much more. So the next time you come across a penny, don't ignore it. Take a closer look. Check the date, examine the details, and consider what you might be holding. Because hidden among the ordinary coins are a few that carry a little extra value, a little extra story, and a little extra mystery. And who knows? The next time you reach into your pocket, you might just find a 2006 Lincoln penny that's been waiting all along to be discovered.